Yo, what is up guys? It is Samool back in with another Epic 7 video for you guys today. And today we're going to be ranking all the units that are available to be chosen from the Moonlight 5-star Headhunt event. If you guys didn't know, there is an event going on right now where you're basically able to get a free Moonlight 5-star of your choice. If you just complete the event, all you have to do is spend energy and collect points, and you'll be able to choose from any single Moonlight 5-star in the game in the end. Except, I think, ML Pavel and ML Elena, because those are two recent units that have just been released, and usually Smilegate kind of prevents you from choosing recently released units. That being said, before we get started with this video though guys, if you guys aren't already participating in my giveaway on Instagram, make sure you guys participate. It's just a chance at free stuff. All you guys have to do is go to my Instagram page and like the post and comment. There is a pretty much easy, simple to follow step-by-step guide on how to participate on that Instagram post. You just have to read it. It takes like 5 seconds. So yeah, that being said, let's start with the list here. So we kind of have it broken down into 5 categories. We have meta-defining, which are just units that are extremely powerful in a million different situations, right? We have top-tier picks, meaning units that are very, very powerful. They won't, make or break the meta, but they're still extremely powerful. You'll see them all the time. Strong picks, these units will be also very powerful, but, not as overly used as the other units. They're not as, OP or broken. Niche units, which will be units that are used in certain situations, which are still very good in those situations, but, you can't pick them as often as the other units. And the units that I think that need buffs. So yeah, meta defining units, guys, shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. We have Apocalypse Ravi at number 1. I think after the recent Hwayoung nerfs, she has become even more powerful. She was already very broken. Extremely strong unit, right? She has a revive built in. She has, self-CR push, she has self-healing, she's very tanky, she has injuries, just really annoying to deal with. The only weakness to her is that she doesn't have AoE, but that's a pretty easy weakness to, mitigate. You just have to bring other units that can do AoE damage. Apocalypse Ravi, guys, in my opinion, is the most broken Moonlight 5-star right now. You see her all the time on defense in Guild Wars and Arena, and in World Arena, she's first picked constantly, even more so with the Hwayoung nerfs. Now, she does get countered by units such as like Zahak, and even Hwayoung still kind of counters her, but Apoc Ravi is still really annoying to deal with, and if you don't one-shot her off the first turn, she'll basically one-shot your squished unit, so pretty annoying. Next, we have Bellion here. Bellion is the final boss of episode 3. She's very powerful. She has a built-in mechanic in her passive where if she's on the field, the enemy cannot generate souls, making it so that you cannot really use Toghel's Ancient Book into her. Really shuts down cleavers because of that. And also she's really annoying because she does a lot of AoE damage and is very tanky and has a provoke and a CR pushback. Extremely strong. You'll see her on defense teams a lot, and in World Arena she's really annoying to deal with as well. Next, we have Conquer Ilias. So you guys might be wondering why I have Conquer Ilias a little bit below Bellion. Some people would put Conquer Ilias here like number 1 even, but I personally have her at number 3 because I think she is the hardest to gear out of all of these meta-defining units because she needs to be very fast. You want her to go first so that she can put up her Vigor buff before the enemy takes a turn, but if you do have those requirements, she becomes a very strong unit. Now, there are some counters out there now with like Politis on the degen build where you can kind of stun lock the enemy team if they have a Conquer Ilias because of the Abyssal Crown, but Conquer Ilias is still really strong. Vigor is such a strong buff. The fact that you get free attack and defense while not being able to dispel it makes it a very powerful buff, and she just does so much damage with her S1 cycling over and over, bringing her DPS units, and her provoke is really annoying as well, especially if you can soul burn it for that 2-turn provoke. Next, we have Meteor Cowrick. This unit is extremely powerful, right? He has an attack buff for your team, puts up an immunity buff, has a barrier and a strip, and he's CR pushing your team constantly with his S1, and he does a lot of damage for a support unit. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, try fighting a very strong Cowrick on 30k HP. This guy not only buffs his team and stops openers, but he's just very annoying to deal with damage-wise as well. He is weak to cleave, though, because he doesn't have really that many options to help in mitigating damage if he doesn't get his turn off, but in slower fights, he's very strong, and you can see why if you guys choose him. I think he's meta-defining units, guys. If you're missing any one of them, definitely pick one of these units for sure. They're extremely versatile. You will be able to use them in so many situations. Just keep in mind, you guys might want to check, what kind of gear you have, right? If you have really good like penetration bruiser set build, then you might want to take Apoc Ravi. If you have a very good, injury set, then maybe Bellion's a better choice than Apoc Ravi because you can use it right away. Very good speed gear, then you can go for Conquer Lace and stuff like that. But generally, I think in terms of ranking these units in strength, I think from left to right, it is a good general consensus about how strong these units are. So next, we're going into the top tier picks. So these units are very powerful. You won't be able to pick them in every situation, and you won't really use these units on defense teams, whereas the units in the meta-defining picks list will be able to use on defense teams very, very easily and still be very strong, but they're still very good nonetheless. So first off, we have Designer Lilibet, extremely powerful cleanser. She's very good against any opener. She really shuts down cleave as well. She basically can cut the enemy team, S3, and pretty much almost one-shot the enemy team. Very powerful as a counter initiator and very good into units that are very meta, such as like Lua, Peyra, and stuff like that. Although Lua not as good because you have to kind of rely on resisting her S3. But for other openers like Ran and Peyra, she's extremely powerful. Next, we have S10A, guys. She is available from the Moonlight Blessing. You guys probably already have her, but if you don't, she's a very good option as well if you have everyone else above her. She's an extremely powerful damage dealer for PvE. She's very, very good in PvP as a one-shotter, right? She also is a very good last pick in World Arena because if you have no AoE to reach her because of her permanent stealth, she becomes a threat on the field and she just does crazy damage, guys. Very annoying to deal with. She can instantly one-shot a unit off the field if you have someone to attack buffer with just her S3. Next, we have Lionheart Sirmia. I think Lionheart Sirmia, guys, is really slept on. A lot of top tier players know that she's very strong, very annoying to deal with, but a lot of, newer players don't think she's as powerful, but Lionheart Sirmia is really good because she counters a lot of meta units and she does crazy damage. So for instance, right, Apoc Ravian counter set gets countered by Lionheart Sirmia. Bellion also is pretty bad into Lionheart Sirmia. Conquilius is pretty bad into Lionheart Sirmia, right? Alencia bad into Lionheart Sirmia because Lionheart Sirmia kind of counters units that have extra attacks or counter attacks because, she'll be able to proc her S2, then S3 right after for crazy damage. I think Lionheart Sirmia is a unit that I definitely underrated until I fought more and more of her, and especially against the really geared one, she is really hard to deal with. She can pretty much one-shot your team with her S3, and if she gets 2 S3s off, usually it means you have lost the fight, so very powerful. Next on the list, we have top model Luluka. She is kind of making a rise in the list because of the recent buffs to her kit, right? So she can now attack buff her entire team. And also, guys, keep in mind in World Arena that mages are getting their final speed boosted by 7, which will increase top model Luluka's damage while also making it easier to speed contest with her. Soul Weavers will also lose 7 final speed, so she can contest like DNs now, and the fact that she has that attack buff and that CR push makes her very strong, and I think she's just going to be really annoying to deal with, especially because she can hide in stealth, right? And if you run her on the barrier artifact for mages, she can even hide in a barrier, or you can run her on like Symbol of Unity. You'll never know what you're facing. I think top model Luluka is definitely a lot stronger now. I've been testing her out. She seems very good, especially if you like to speed contest. If you guys don't have really good speed gear though, you might want to drop her down a tier or 2, but if you have good speed gear, she's extremely powerful. Next, we have Fallen Cecilia, guys. Fallen Cecilia, used to be meta defining for, the longest time, but now there's a lot of barrier counters and there's just really good knights out already. And the meta is kind of at the point where you can't really draft Fallen Cecilia safely anymore, especially because, she kind of gets destroyed by Operator Sigrid, DJ Bazaar, anything that counters barriers and stuff like that. Even when Arunka comes out, right, the new RGB 5-star, she'll be very good in the Fallen Cecilia. So you're going to have to be careful, but she's still nonetheless a very good knight. AoE barrier at the start of battle, AoE skill nullifier, just extremely powerful, and she can CC lock a unit with her S1, making her a very strong pick. Next, Closer Charles, guys. So Closer Charles is a cleave unit, but there are also like some Closer Charles out there that are very tanky. This unit's very good because he has that AoE CR push, attack buff, right? And you never really know what you're fighting, honestly. In the past, it's always been like Closer Charles as a cleaver, but I say like 2 out of 10 Charles that I see now are like tanky Charles. It's kind of weird, but he seems pretty strong, and if you are a cleaver, he's very strong. He's just really annoying to deal with. You have to kind of guess what his speed's at because his speed ranges wildly, right? You can see like a 240 Charles sometimes, you can see up to like a 290. It's just really hard to predict what you're fighting, and if you do fight a really geared Closer Charles, he can pretty much solo cleave your team. Next, we have Operator Sigrid. So Operator Sigrid, guys, this unit's always been very good. Only really used against barrier units. Now, I do understand Hwayoung got nerfed, so her value will go down, but just keep in mind we have that new barrier set coming out, which will make Operator Sigrid very good into that. You also have Fallen Cecilia still being very good, so she can one-shot, Fallen Cecilia's DPS units. Just a very powerful unit. Even if you're fighting against no barriers, keep in mind she has that AoE, CR push, and attack buff, so very powerful. I think, this is a unit you definitely want to have if you are struggling against barrier units. Next, we have Remnant Violet, recently buffed. Honestly, you could probably put him a little higher, but for the most part, I think, it's hard to rank him a little higher because he is still RNG heavy, right? You still need to dodge and, yeah, you still need to dodge, right? 70% evasion is not going to always feel like 70% sometimes, especially when you're using him. But Remnant Violet, very good when he does work. And with the buffs, it makes it so that he's way more consistent. You can't just ignore him when he's at 5 stacks anymore. He can cycle his S3 a lot quicker, making him do a lot more damage on the battlefield. And I've been seeing in Guild Wars, he's just so strong now with his buffs. Next, we have Strays, guys. So Strays, very good unit. He's really good in PvE as a one-shot hunt unit, right? You can use him in KDs, Asmanac. You can basically use him everywhere, and he's also very good as a cleaver. Recently got buffed so he can't get counterattacked on his S3, so against units like Bellion and Rem, you can't really get countered by those units anymore. Same with like Violets, so he's definitely strong as a cleave unit. Next, we have Sylvan Sage Vivian. This unit, kind of weird, but in fights that last very long and in slow fights, she's very powerful. She does a lot of damage on the field. Her S3 ramps up her damage, and she is very, very tanky. Definitely good in PvP for sure. Next, we have Sage Ball, mostly used as an anti-cleave unit, but this unit is just so good at anti-cleave that he has to be top tier, right? If you guys are looking for a good anti-cleave option, then Sage Ball is probably one of your best bets because he can cut and sleep the enemy team and just win right off the bat. DJ Basar, guys, very, very strong as an anti-barrier unit, similar to Operator Sigret, except that DJ Basar can actually, survive longer. And honestly, DJ Basar, even against non-barrier teams, like, not like non-barrier teams, but non-barrier heavy teams, right? It's still very good because of the fact that he has a lot of healing, he has debuffs, and he's just really annoying to deal with. And his damage is actually not that bad either. Same with his healing, especially after the buffs. So those are the top tier picks, guys. Now let's go into the strong picks. These picks, right, mostly you're going to want to stray away from. They're very, very, I wouldn't say they're niche, but they're good. But, just keep in mind there's units that can kind of do what they do a lot better in more situations than not. And, if these units do, if you guys do want these units or choose one of these units, just keep in mind you won't be able to use them as often as the top tier or meta defining picks. So Ruel, guys, only really used in very slow fights, usually in Guild Wars offense. RTA, not really picked that much, only if you are, drafting very, very slow and the enemy's drafting very, very slow. So for that reason, I don't have her in the top tier picks, but it's still very good single target healer with that revive. Spirit Eye Celine, good with Fallen Cecilia, but keep in mind Fallen Cecilia does have some counters. And also, Spirit Eye Celine, if she doesn't, she can get one shot right off the bat a lot of the time, so you have to be very careful using her. But she is a very fun unit to use. I don't think she's as OP as the other units, but definitely a strong unit with her revive and her immortality being really annoying. Next, we have Maid Chloe, guys. Maid Chloe with her attack and revive buff, very good. Just keep in mind, she does get countered by a lot of units, right? You have units like Bellion that can strip the buffs. You have Landy, who really thrives against units with buffs. You have Rimuru, who can steal the buffs as well. And even Lua is very good against her because you can, kind of just make her useless, right? So I think Maid Chloe definitely, fell a lot in the past few seasons, but still a pretty strong unit. I think there's just not really her meta. The meta's not that good for her. ML Flan. So ML Flan I think is pretty decent. The only thing is her key requirements are pretty crazy. And also you need a plus 30 limited artifact in Summertime Mysterious Artifact. So for that reason, it's pretty hard to put her in top tier and justify picking her from the selector because there's just so much you need for her. But if you do make her work, she's very fun. And she's also, pretty decent. The problem is, like I said, you need to invest a lot into her. And even if you do have a very well-built ML Flan, she's not meta-defining, right? So for that reason, it's hard to justify picking her, right? Arbiter Vildred, mostly used as a cleave counter. That's really it in PvP. In PvE, though, he's pretty good as a damage dealer, right? You can bring him into raid, Asmanac, and stuff like that, and he's a pretty decent option. Just keep in mind, not going to be picked a lot in PvP. On defense teams, is pretty countered as well. And also because Top Model Luca did get buffed, Arbiter Vildred's stock has dropped a bit as well because Top Model Luca is a very, very hard counter to Arbiter Vildred. Even if you build him tanky, she can still one-shot him, so you have to be very, very careful. Next, Archdemon Shadow Ameru. Okay, so this unit, guys, is very controversial, right? Like, sometimes I play against her, I feel like she's a top tier pick, but sometimes I just don't. I think this unit is very good in the right situation, but those situations don't arise that much. She's very good against like low damage, slow teams that really rely on their S2 passive, but she's also counterable as well, right? You can just bring Bellion, even Rem's okay. You can also bring units like Rwana and stuff like that if you don't get sealed and you have high ER. But the thing is, Ameru is a unit that if you pick her, right, you'll have a lot of fun sometimes. You can only really pick her in RTA as well, but the thing is, like, not really worth using your selector or your event, selector on this unit, because there's so many units that just do way more things and are way more consistent. Next, we have the niche picks, guys. So we're going to talk about the niche picks real quick and what units or what areas of content you can use them in, right? Solitaria, very good opener, pretty good for cleavers, right? But out of that, I wouldn't really use her. Faith Athletica, another cleave unit. Ambitious Tywin, very good against slow teams, but the meta is just at a state where you're never going to fight a team with just like full on slow units. And ML Tywin, kind of is a unit that needs to ramp up with his souls and needs to generate souls and then soul burn his S3 over and over. And there's a lot of cleansers in the game that can deal with his stun, so not as great. LQC used really against dark units, but that's pretty much it. If you can pick her into heavy dark team and get her S3 off, she's very good. But sometimes she doesn't even one-shot those units. You have to be careful. And yeah, I don't think she's as strong as before. You can kind of use her to deal with APOC Ravi, but the thing is APOC Ravi usually kills LQC before LQC can even one-shot APOC Ravi, so pretty weird. Blood Moon Haste, only used against heavy revive teams, right? Good against Maid Chloe, good against Arbiter Vildred, but that's pretty much it. Pretty good against Mercedes as well. Fire Mercedes. Now we have the needs buff tiers. I'm not going to talk about these units, but these units definitely need buffs in my opinion. I don't know what Smilegate needs to do, but they definitely need to do something about these units. These units are usable in very, very few situations, but 9 times out of 10 you're not going to really use these units, and if you do, there's going to be a better unit for the job. If you guys are lacking a lot of units and you randomly have one of these units and you are finding a lot of success with them, then nice. Just keep in mind there's other units you can pull for later on that will replace them indefinitely. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video though, guys. If you guys have any differing opinions, let me know in the comments down below, and thanks for watching. Peace.